Alright. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Microsoft Excel course on Learn.io. Today we're going to be talking about different ways to format your data, just to make it a little more readable, a little more beautiful, a little more pleasant to look at. So we'll start with basic formatting. When you're on the Home tab, it's very similar to other applications, Word, Google Drive, PowerPoint, all of them have this kind of similar layout right here, where you can just click on the cell. So this one's the profit over time cell from our last video. If I click B, it'll bold everything. If I click I, it'll italicize it, basically just lean it. If I click U, it'll underline it. Keep in mind, if you are on a PC, you can click Control B for bold, Control I for italics, and Control U for underline. On Mac, it's the same, just with Command instead of Control. One more thing you can do, you have your fonts here. You can use a different font. Let's say I want to use this really fancy looking Algerian font. And there you go, you just click on it. You don't even need to highlight anything. If I want to cover multiple fields at once, just select both of them. Algerian, done, boom, they're both in Algerian. I'm going to undo that just because it's a little big. Same deal with font size. I could just click next to the 11 on the arrow, pick a size, or I could, when the 11 is highlighted, just type in the font size that I want. And basically, it's as simple as that to change colors. You can change the fill color, theme color, of a cell by clicking on this right here, this little fill icon. Since it's blue, anytime I click on a cell and click on this, now it'll color it blue. The A is always text size, text color. Right here, I can change the text color to be blue. Don't really like that, so I'm going to leave it black. These two A's next to the number, once again, font up, font down for sizes. And that's basically just the simple how to change your font and customize the text a little bit. But there's actually something pretty cool you can do with numbers. So right here, we have all of these values from last time, right? We know that this is profit, so it's going to be $2.3 million and $1 million and so on. But there's no dollar sign here. I don't really feel like going through clicking on each field, clicking at the beginning of the thing, typing in the dollar sign, and then the space. It's a lot of work to do that, right? So there's a pretty easy way to just make everything in number format. Let's click this dollar sign right here, and boom. Just as simple as that, it adds the dollar to the front and adds the .00 to the end, just as if it was any sort of currency. You can do the same thing with other currencies. If you click the arrow next to the dollar, you can get the US, you can get the UK pound, you can get the euro, Chinese yuan, and I have CHF as well, just a custom one that I added to it. So I'll leave that because that actually makes this much more legible. You can also see right here, there is the comma. You can get rid of, oh, that didn't work. All right, I'll show you this with a separate example. So if I have 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, then I add the comma, boom, 100,000. So much easier to read. And it adds the dots, it adds the commas. It makes it so much easier rather than having to go in and type 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, dot 0, 0. You just type in 1 million. Or if you're copy pasting it from a different data source, then that just makes it much easier to work with. Last thing right over here that you can see, there is a percent symbol. So I'll use these numbers right here to explain this. So if you just click on a cell, click on the percent, boom, it'll put it in percent form. Just keep in mind that it assumes that the numbers that you're dealing with are in decimal form and not whole numbers. So the 4 doesn't turn into 4%, it turns into 400% because it counts the number 1 as 100%. So if I wanted 4%, I would write 0.04, and then that would be turned into 4%. So that one's a little more useful if you're kind of more confident with your conversions. Otherwise, I don't know that you'd always want to use it. And the last thing that's pretty useful, if I type in, I'll just add this number here in K4. Let's say I want to deal with a number that has a lot of decimals, right? You could just do 4.32147685, whatever it is, right? And you can see it automatically rounds for as big as the cell is. Let's say the cell was way bigger, fits all the digits. Up here you can see the full number, down here you can see the full number. But let's say I don't really want to see the full number. It's taking up a lot of space. it's harder to kind of understand at a cursory glance. You can use these little symbols right here to round up or round down decimal. So this button on the right will decrease the number of decimals you see. I can decrease it as much as I want, decrease it down to the whole number. Or I can increase it back up and increase it infinitely. Just keeps adding zeros to the end because there's no other numbers past that. But if you notice here, so notice it's 4.3214769, but if I decrease one more decimal, it doesn't stay 76, it becomes 77. It rounds, it doesn't truncate. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're dealing with this. Let me just see if I can resize this. The default size is 80 pixels. But yeah, so that's how you can do some really nice, easy formatting with your numbers. But then you can also use Excel to make all sorts of tables. So I'll demonstrate this with the profit over time information that we have right here. So let's say, I don't know, I want to give this all sort of like a thick outside border first to separate it from everything else. So as you can see, it has this dark kind of black line around it that's separating it from everything else that's nearby. Then I want to separate each individual data value. So I'll select all of these data values that I want to separate. And then I can use bottom border, top border, left, right, no, or all. If I use all, it'll add lines above, beneath, to the right, to the left, and in between of every single cell I have highlighted. You'll also notice it got rid of the dark border that I added around the whole thing. Slight oversight, we'll just select it all again, and then add thick outside borders. That'll go over the thin outside border that it had before, and it looks pretty nice. Now let's say I want to separate my title a bit more. Let's bold this and underline it just for the sake of, firstly, actually just bold it to make it stand out a little bit. Then we'll highlight these three fields, and we'll just add like, I don't know, maybe a double bottom border to the bottom. So you can see now it's separated from all the other information. It's kind of sticking out, it's separated. The only thing I don't like is there's this thin line right here, right kind of in the middle of the title cell, as it were. Well, there's a pretty easy way to get rid of that. You just highlight all three of the cells that you're trying to merge, click Merge in Center. It'll merge those three cells into one, and your text from that top left cell will stay. Now there's other things you can do with this. You can merge across, merge cells, and unmerge cells. Unmerge, exactly what it sounds like. It unmerges the cells. So there are three separate cells again. Merge across and merge are relatively similar. They do the same thing. Oh, whoops. Not merge in center. I wanted to merge across. But it'll keep your text all the way on the left rather than centering it in one fell swoop. So you can just click the Center Justify button right here to put it in the center. It's one more formatting thing. This one moves all your text to the right, this to the center, this to the left. And if you're writing paragraphs, that's not as necessarily as relevant here in Excel, but you can use this to kind of slowly move your text over to one side or the other. Let's undo all of that. But yeah, so let's merge and center this. Actually, since it's been merged, let's unmerge this first and then merge and center it, just to make it look nice. So unmerge, see there's three cells again, and then merge and center, nice centered, everything looks pretty. But there's actually another way to do this. And I want to demonstrate this with the X and Y data table right here so you can see a comparison. You could use this handy little tool here. It says Format as Table. I'm not entirely sure the exact same thing exists on Google Sheets. I may have forgotten where to find it on Google Sheets, but on Excel this is a pretty useful tool. I want to make this data table look really cool and snazzy, like stand out, so I'm going to use a dark blue table. Don't really worry too much about all of this jarble of information over here. So long as you've highlighted your whole data table, it should work. I've checked off the My Table Has Headers checkbox, since the X and Y values or the letters are my headers. So if I click OK now, boom, I have a beautiful looking table right here. I want to make this stand out a little more, so I'm going to add kind of a bold border around the whole thing, and now it just looks really cool. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do now that you have this set up as a table and Excel knows that it's a table, compared to when you know that it's a table and Excel doesn't. So you can click on this arrow. You can sort it smallest to largest, which I already have, Or you could sort it largest to smallest. And that'll change the values and flip them around so that the largest x value is first. And as you can see, the y value is also flipped because this data table always assumes that the 12 and 144 are one single data point. You know, in science, when you're talking about data points, you have your tables, you have your x and y point, same as in math. That's the same here. 12 and 144 are connected, 10 and 100 are connected, so on and so forth. So let's say I changed this 4 to be 400, and then I did the same thing. I did largest to smallest. Boom. Now the 400 goes to the side. Even though the 16 is smaller than 144, because it's sorting by which x value is the largest. If I sort by which y value is the largest, that 400 goes down because the 16 is way smaller than all of these other numbers. But if you don't necessarily need these features, and there's a lot more you can do with this, I recommend you just kind of mess around with it a bit. But you want your table to look really cool. You can also do this other thing where you go over, let me find this, cell styles, and you can basically manually make this look like a table. So I could make this accent 1, then I could select the next field, kind of make it 40% accent, do the same with a bunch of other fields, you know. And the way I'm selecting multiple kind of rows is I'm holding and dragging for the first one, then control and holding and dragging for the second one, and that way you can select multiple separate things that aren't connected. Right here, and I do the same thing over here, but maybe make this slightly less accented, maybe 20%, boom. It's a nice looking table. Maybe it could have picked different colors, right, to make it stand out more or less, but it's effective. And that's kind of how you format things, especially tables, in Microsoft Excel. Hope you learned something. Goodbye.